the more about the self parameter which we have used in our previous examples. So self parameter is a reference to the current object of a class, or I can say current instance of a class. And like we have already shown in the previous example, using the self, I'm able to access the variables and the methods which are available. Now, this self need not be always named as self. I mean, we can give any name of our choice, but whatever name you want to give, that must be the first parameter in the any method that you have. So let's say you have a method where the two parameters are there. So the first parameter has to be self and the second parameter can be of anything. So like we said, it can be replaced with any other name, need not be self. Suppose I want to replace with hello. Yes, it is possible. But the first parameter has to be self always. Now, if a method do not have any parameters, so by default, we have to say that there is one parameter with the name self. Okay. Now let's see an example here. So here I took a class called person. And here I am trying to define one method, that is your input. And if you can count, there are three parameters here. And out of those three parameters, as you can observe, the first parameter itself is nothing but your self. So this is the self parameter, which is the first parameter by default. Okay. Apart from that, there are two other parameters we have taken. And what we have done inside this method is we have used the same self to refer the parameter like name and your age. Okay. Similarly, here we have taken one more method and we do not have any parameter here. So when we do not have any parameter, then of course we should write self only. And using this self, we are able to access the values of the name and age here, self.name, self.age. Now, so overall we can say that I have tried to define a class called person where there are two methods. This is your method 1 and this is your method 2. Now, what we have done next, because we know that only by writing simply a class along with the variables and method is not going to be enough. You have to create the object of that class, and this is the line where we are creating the object of this class. So POBJ is nothing but the object of this person class. Now using this object, now I'm allowed to call this input method as well as this show method. So now let us clearly understand when I'm going to call this input method. So you can see the input method has how many parameters? 3 parameters. But out of these 3 parameters, the very first parameter is nothing but the self. So here when I'm invoking the input method or calling the input method, see I'm passing only 2 parameters. So what this self is going to consider? Now self will consider the object through which this method is called, because I'm calling input method with the help of an object called POBJ. So this self is going to be replaced. It is going to be replaced with your POBJ through which we have called it. So wherever self is there, it is going to replace that POBJ. So what is POBJ? Is nothing but the current object. It is a current instance through which this input method has been called. So as a result, when the control goes to this, Murli has been copied into this name and age is going to take a 45. Now internally what we have done, self is automatically replaced with this POBJ. So it look like POBJ.name equal to your Murali, that is been set here. Similarly, POBJ.age equal to 45, which we have taken here. So the self is going to replace itself along with the name of the object through which that method is being called. Now coming to the second call where we are calling the show method, but this time you can see there are no argument because my show method does not take any argument because I have to compulsorily keep the self as one argument. Hence I have kept it, but it does mean that show method does not require any argument. So because only self is there, now how do we understand this? We have called the show method with the help of this object. So it just like we can say we are calling show and this p obj is passed as an argument or parameter here. So you are calling this show method by passing p obj as parameter. So control wheel goes here. Now here I am trying to refer p obj name. Already we have set here, right? P obj name is how much? Morally. Similarly, p obj dot age is set with 45. So now when I am writing self dot name, so I am taking the same object through which actually we have invoked the input method. So what input method has done for me? It has set the name and age with values like Murali and 45. And they relate to an object. What is the object name? POBC. And the show method which I am invoking right now, I again used the same object through which the input was called earlier. So as a result, the show method, when it is going through this particular line and the self is again replaced with what? POBC. So as a result, this line look like not self dot name. Internally it is going to treat like POBJ dot name. So already we have set here, right? POBJ name is how much? Morally. Similarly, POBJ dot age, where we have set already 45. So now this is going to show the result like my name is Morally and my age is 45. Now let's check with the program. Let's say I'm taking a class called person. So where we have defined one method with the name input, where we have added say self, name and say age and put a colon here. Now we can write self dot name equal to name and self dot age equal to age. Now let's define one more method. Let's say define def show, where I'm putting only self. Now here we can just print the value like name is self dot name. Similarly, I want to print the age, so I can say age is self dot age. So now we have defined two methods inside the class called person. So now we will be defining the object. Let's say I'm writing POBJ equal to person. Now using this POBJ, we are going to call the input. So where I'm going to supply, let's say Morally, say 45. Now once again with the same object, I would like to call show method like this. Okay. So now what is happening? So once we define this class here with two methods, now here we are creating the object. Okay. So this line is actually creating the object of which class? Person class. Okay. Now when you are going to call this input method by using this POBJ, so it internally treated like we are calling input method, where the first argument will be taken as POBJ, and of course the second argument we have specified as Morally, and third one is specified as 45. So this is going to invoke this input method by taking POBJ. So how this POBJ has come? Because we are actually calling the input method by taking the object name called POBJ. And self is always going to look for the current object through which the method is called. Because input method is called by using this POBJ, Hence, self will be internally replaced with POBJ. So once the control goes here, so self is now POBJ, name is holding for Murali, age is holding 45. So now these two lines, what they will do, they will set like POBJ dot name is set with Murali, POBJ dot age is set with 45, right? Now once we come back, and the last line where what we are trying to do, we are trying to invoke show method by using the same object through which we have called the input method. So now how this will be treated internally, now we are calling show, and inside this you are just passing this object. So now when the control goes to the show method, this self is going to be replaced with what? POBJ. Now these two lines, when they get executed, I will get right. Name is, what is self here? POBJ dot name. So earlier, what is POBJ dot name we have set? Morally. And similarly, age is self dot age. What is self here? POBJ once again. So POBJ dot age already we have set here with the value 45. So hence we are going to get name is Murali, age is 45. So let us check this whether we are getting the same answer or not. You can see here we are getting name is Murali, age is 45. Now we need not write self always. Suppose I am going to write something hello here. Okay. Say here I am writing something self, for example. Okay. So I've just changed this self to hello. Okay. So now because I'm changing this to hello, so here also I need to change hello. This also need to change hello. So I have changed the self with name hello. Whereas here in show, I'm still continuing with the same self. So let us see if there is any change in the output. Let's run this. So you can see there is no change in the output. So it does not matter what name you give to the self. So self is a very commonly used term. So we always do prefer that. If you want to change that also, you are allowed to do that. So this is how the self has some role to be played, very important role to be played inside your class.